Sometimes someone very special pops into our city, and right now this person is right beside me. We want to welcome Maria Nemat. And Marina, first of all, a warm Winnipeg welcome.
Thank you.
But we are standing in the glorious Canadian Museum for Human Rights. You actually are being honored here in Rights Today, their new exhibition. And I have to pause. Your story is so powerful. It is, for some, maybe unbelievable, but you've said it so many times, Marina. Once again, please share with us your incredible journey and story.
Well, I mean, where do I start? I was born in Iran, 1965, so I'm 51 years old. And I lived through the Iranian Revolution. I was 13 when it happened. I had a normal childhood. By normal, I mean, what is normal, right? So I grew up wanting to become a medical doctor. I was madly in love with Donny Osmond, and I wanted to marry him. I wanted to become a medical doctor. And back then, when I was born and when I was growing up, until I was 13, Iran was governed by secular laws. So a girl could go to school. A girl could become a judge. She could even become the prime minister. So being a doctor was not far-fetched. And then it all shattered. I mean, the revolution happened and Iran changed, and religious laws came in instead of the secular laws. And we lost our liberties. I mean, the revolution promised liberties. We didn't have political liberties when I was growing up. We had personal freedoms, but not political ones. And the revolution promised political freedoms, but it didn't deliver. And not only we didn't gain those political freedoms, we lost our personal ones. So dancing became illegal, singing became illegal, holding your boyfriend's hand in public became illegal. And then when I was 13, I looked around me, and basically looking pretty and having fun were both illegal. The hijab became mandatory, and I didn't want to wear it. I had grown up in a bikini, and I was a Christian. And then we protested, we went on the streets, and then the wave of mass arrests of young people began in spring of 1981, and they just came for us. And they took us by the hundreds, by the thousands, and imprisoned us in Evin prison. 90% of the prisoners in the 80s were under the age of 20, and I was just one of them. And I'm lucky because I actually survived. Many of my friends died.
Oh my goodness. Now, the time spent in this prison is unspeakable and unbelievable.
It is. I mean, it's a black hole. I was 16 when I was arrested. I was still a naive teenager. And when I was taken in, I had no idea what it meant to be a political prisoner, because when you say political prisoner, you imagine someone in their 40s, 30s, you know, who is very brilliant and has read a lot and has an opinion. But I mean, I was just a 16-year-old naive girl who was still in love with Donny Osmond. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I was a loudmouth. I had been a loudmouth. I mean, I had protested against the government simply because I wanted to wear the miniskirt, not because I was so aware of it politically, not at all. And then there we went. I didn't know what torture was. So when they were tying me up to this bare wooden bed in a small room in Evin prison with two men standing over me, I had no idea what was about to happen. They actually took off my socks and my shoes because they were about to lash the soles of my feet with a length of cable. And that's the most common method of torture in the Middle East because our nerve ends are in our feet. So when they were taking off my shoes, just to give you my mindset, I was wearing Puma running shoes. I can see them. The moment I say Puma running shoes, I see them. They were white. They had red stripes on either side. And I had not eaten for days. I had saved my lunch money to buy them because, you know, a girl and her shoes, this is your status, yes, right? So, and then when they took off my shoes, now I'm in a torture room with two men, and they can chop me into tiny little pieces. And all I'm thinking is, oh my God, my shoes, give me back my shoes. And then they beat me to a pulp.
So a little over 2 years was spent there, and some terrible things. You were forced to marry your prison guard?
Yeah, it is common in the Middle East. Don't forget that when there are religious laws in place in a country like Iran, according to the law, a woman, for example, a woman's testimony is worth half of a man. More or less, a young girl can be literally sold into marriage. A young girl doesn't have a say to whom she's going to be married. I mean, it's the grown-ups, it's the men who make that decision. And as a prisoner, you're less than an average girl. I mean, if an average girl doesn't have a say in who she's going to marry, think about a girl who's a prisoner. So, I mean, I was just less than a slave. That's what all my friends said. They always said, you know what, guys, we are less than slaves, so don't think about it. And yeah, so I had the death sentence, and it's very easy to get, even nowadays in Evin, to get a death sentence. A courtroom is a Sharia judge sitting behind a desk, passing verdicts every 3 minutes. And it was reduced to life in prison. So I was basically the property of the prison. And they could do to me as they wished. So my interrogator said to me that I had to marry him or he would arrest my parents and my boyfriend. And I thought about it. I mean, I thought on my feet. And I thought, if he arrests my parents, I wouldn't have a home to go back to. I just wanted to go home. So I thought, okay, I mean, sure, why not? And then he said I had to convert to Islam. I said, fine. And he even changed my name. So I had lost my freedom, my family, my religion, and my dignity. I was being raped over and over again at the age of 17 in Evin prison, and it was legal. You know, think about it. Like here, I mean, even in Canada, in the West in general, sexual harassment and rape are much more common than we think. But even here, women who are raped, they are afraid to come forward. And then think about it, if it is actually sanctioned by the government. Where do you think you stand? You have nothing. You have nothing. So you have to comply, and you cannot protest to it because they will kill you and your family.
Okay, so we're going to do a little fast tracking. You eventually leave the prison. You marry someone again, and you become Christian, although you're still Islamic, so the marriage isn't really sanctified, true, then. But then how did you manage to get to Canada?
Well, I was a Christian when I was arrested, and my conversion to Islam was by force. So I went right back to my church the moment I was released. I mean, I was released and I went to church, and they accepted me back. I mean, I just went for confession. I'm a Catholic, so I went for confession. I confessed my sins, and they accepted me back. I married my boyfriend, a Christian, in the Catholic church in Tehran. And the church accepted it, but of course, if the government of Iran found out, because as a Muslim woman, they considered me a Muslim one, even though in reality I wasn't, but they considered me one. A Muslim woman, according to Iranian Islamist law, is not allowed to marry a Christian man. But the other way is allowed. So a Muslim man is allowed to marry a Christian woman. So anyhow, technicalities, right? So if they found out, I could be imprisoned just because of doing that, regardless of my political whatever. So I knew we had to leave. And for 5 years after I was released, they wouldn't let me leave. Finally, I had to pay them. They called it a deposit. Basically, it's ransom. It's a nice name for ransom. So I had to pay this huge amount of money, and I basically bought my passport, and it was a limited passport, one exit. I have it. I mean, it says that on it, in the document. And I paid the money, and actually the receipt for that money is at the Museum of Human Rights here right now. So the receipt is there. And they told me, okay, but they said I had to go back in a year. I promised I would. I signed the document, and of course I had no intention of doing that. We couldn't come straight to Canada because back then there was no Canadian embassy, and we didn't want to leave the impression that we were leaving for good. It had to look temporary. So we had friends at the Spanish embassy. We got a visa to Spain, went to Spain, from Spain to Hungary, where we had family. And there we went to the Canadian embassy. And I cannot begin to tell you how wonderful the ambassador was, how helpful the ambassador was, how he facilitated. We made it to Canada from Hungary in 10 months, which was unheard of. It usually took like 3-4 years. And we made it here really quickly.
Wow. So Marina, let's fast track now even more to today, where we stand and what you do now in your home Toronto. You say that there really isn't any kind of closure. You can never forget, but you can move on. You've written 2 books. The writing has helped?
You know what? I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and PTSD is a mental illness, and there is no cure for it. There is no pill you can take, and magically it goes away. Therapy helps, medication helps, but it doesn't fix it. What all you can do is manage. So I'm in management mode. Now I have good days, I have bad days. I have days when I'm very functional, and I have days that I feel that unease, that feeling of losing control. Suddenly your mind turns into a monster that is out of control. And you know that if you lose control, you're going to lose control over your body, you're going to lose control over everything. So now I have all the tools necessary, going through therapy and all of that. I know what to do when that happens. But again, there is no guarantee. I mean, one day it might get out of hand. So you basically manage. And writing is one of the ways I find reading and writing calming. When I read, when I write, I rest. My mind somehow eases a little bit. So, I mean, I use writing as a tool to maintain my sanity.
Well, if you want to know more about Maria's story, you can come visit the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Before we wrap up, I guess, words of wisdom, faith for women today.
Never go silently into the night. I mean, we have voices. If you have your voice, use it. Do not accept what the world wants to shove down your throat. Speak out. Yes, it has a price, but it's worth it.
Thank you so much, Maria Nemat.